Minions! It's that time of the week where I cover a horror story and you listen. Wait a second, what's that noise? Huh? Oh shit! Content warning. Deeply unpleasant but not graphic relationship dynamics. Mentions of homophobia and asophobia. It's probably clean enough to not be not safe for work, but I figured I'd tag it as much just in case. This is my only D&D horror story from back in the 2000s, when I was a teen in high school. I've told this story in various Facebook groups and figured, why not share it here? Some context. I went to a different school from my circle of friends. It was one of those all-boy private schools. I was relentlessly bullied and only had two friends there, who were also some flavor of outcast. I'm gonna call these two DM and Seraph. He played a fully chaotic half-angel. So, one main reason I was bullied so much is that this was in the early 2000s and the term asexual didn't exist yet. So when the other guys found out I didn't seem to care about sex, they immediately assumed I was gay and bullied me accordingly. This was the 2000s. And now we get to the D&D part of the horror story. So, me, DM, and Seraph became friends in our third year. They introduced me to a local card shop that had some gaming PCs you could log time on, as well as D&D tables. We'd hang out there every Friday. I was a bland-as-bread, self-insert, 20-year-old half-elf sorcerer, fresh out of magic school, who didn't pick up loot most of the time because I was afraid it would count as stealing. Basically, we were trying to stop some kind of dragon cultists from absorbing the souls of several powerful dragons, so our very low-level party of two had to try to find a way to kill them first while avoiding direct combat. We had a few wacky short adventures. I killed a red dragon via a simple puzzle, while Seraph, hilariously, decided to fight them, and we spent most of the dragon's hoard of money reviving him after he got one-shotted. I accidentally burnt down the entire green dragon's forest with a fireball, with us inside it, and Seraph had to fly me out Sonic and Tails style. Another hilarious incident I never got to live down, etc., etc. And then, things took a turn at some point. I forget the exact details that set him on this path, as well as precisely what year of high school it was, and thus what age we all were. But the DM got it in his head to have my character get married to a good-aligned succubus, and said that it was going to happen even if I complained. And I did tell him that I didn't want it to happen, every time he mentioned that he was planning that session. Why the DM decided to push this is a mystery to me. But I suspect this was his way of trying to, quote-unquote, cure my prudishness, as he saw it. Again, being ace wasn't something really understood among high school teens in the 2000s. At some point, we made plans to hang out at Seraph's house, which was very far from my home, and play video games and D&D until that evening, when my dad would come pick me up, something we'd done a couple of times prior. And as we sat down to play D&D, DM declares that this session would be the one where my character gets married. Again, I said I didn't want to do it. He didn't care. He kept going. So, in this captive audience type setting, where I couldn't really up and leave if I had the guts to, I was a pushover back then, so timid, I don't really want to, was all I could manage. We had a 100% non-combat, zero-adventure session where the king and queen honored our two-man party with a feast. And their succubus princess daughter had a love-at-first-sight moment with my sorcerer. I have vague memories of most of the session, given that it was like 18 years ago. The only non-important part of the story I really remember was a bit where I was locked in my character's guest room at the palace with a hilarious portal to the elemental plane of pee in the closet for comedy reasons, and with no way out. Some way or another, my character gets nabbed or otherwise taken to the princess's chamber, where she proceeds to grab him and, thank the gods, DM tastefully does a fade to black. Scene shifts to Seraph, who accidentally/drunkenly stumbles upon a secret chapel under the palace where my character is getting married to the princess. Despite my in-real-life protests, DM was overruling my character's protestations and saying those weren't happening. I go, "Yo, there's that bit where I can say I object. Get me out of here, Seraph." Memory gets a bit fuzzy as to whether or not the DM bribed Seraph with sweet loot or not, but Seraph doesn't object, and I think he even jokingly blessed the union as a celestial entity. Another feast scene. The princess absconds with my character yet again for wedding night festivities, and the DM looks me dead in the eye and says, "It was the best night of your character's life. You're not allowed to say otherwise. In fact, the next morning your character says to Seraph that it was the most wonderful night of your life." Yep. My high school DM hardcore railroaded me, even hijacked my character's free will to have my self-insert character marry a succubus and have his first time, and told me it was the best night of your character's life. You're not even allowed to contradict me, even though I repeatedly said I, as the player and as the character, didn't want to. Because as it turns out, I'm ace. It never got so uncomfortable again, at least. But Princess Succubus showed up every other session to graciously gift the party with a whole bunch of important resources as a sign of love to her loving husband. Wink wink. And to flirt with my character. Again, over my complaints. Finally, the DM gave my sorcerer a recharging Rod of Frost and Flame with some neat spells in it to shut me up. And yet he wondered why I started playing my character as a completely deranged, chaotic neutral, fireball-loving lunatic afterwards. My way of having my character express his trauma from the whole incident. Fortunately, after high school, I no longer had much reason to hang out with those two friends anymore. Doubly so after the DM went and turned into a colossal douche as a young adult. I don't miss him, and barely miss Seraph, if I'm being honest. End post. You know, funny thing I've noticed in my life, those that tend to care about the sexuality of others tend to be projecting certain self-insecurities. And given that the DM went so far out of their way to railroad the player in this method, does make one think. Now, I'm not going to say that he should have left the table there and then, and I'm only going to say that because these were his only friends. If he had done that, he potentially would have alienated them and not had any friends. And while some might say no friends are better than having homophobic or acephobic friends, this was a high schooler, right? Emotions run very high, and having some sort of social interaction is important. What I might have done in their shoes is try to educate the DM a bit more, even though being an ace wasn't fully defined back then. So the OP could have said to the DM, look, just because I don't enjoy having sex doesn't mean I'm gay or that you have to do any kind of intervention like this. I want to play my character the way I want to play. If you do this, I will not attend the table. Now, that could have very well been an empty threat, but it may have opened the eyes of the DM when he said that. But again, hindsight is 20/20. It seemed how he handled the situation at the time was fairly good. He let the DM know that he didn't want to do this and tried to find a roleplay way out of it. So I commend him for that. Yeah, this is a tough one. Okay, on that sour note, that is the end of the video. If you want to stick around and listen to a few more of my videos, here's my most recent video, and here's a playlist of all of my videos for the past few years.